As we gear up for a new year, December is a great time to start goal setting for 2021. Today, we will explore 5 steps for personal self-reflection. Welcome to today's video. My name is Lindsay and I run the blog The Well-Rounded Teacher, where I give you tips, tricks, and ideas on ways to live a more balanced lifestyle. If you are new to the channel, please click that red subscribe button as well as the bell icon so you never miss another video from me. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for being here today. I hope that you get some value from today's comment or from today's content. Please click that like button if you are. As we are getting ready for 2021, it is a great time to start goal setting. And with that in mind, this month I am going to be starting a series on goal setting and different aspects of goal setting to prepare you to get started strong in the year 2021. So today we're talking about 5 steps for personal self-reflection as well as self-reflection questions to ask yourself. Number 1, be honest with yourself. This can be a tough area, especially if we are thinking about our goals that we set and it's not what we were hoping would happen. So be honest with yourself. Ask yourself, what were my goals or New Year's resolutions for 2020? Now, as you're thinking through that, it is really easy for emotions to kind of get out of control, especially with the year that we've just gone through. But I really want to encourage you to try and separate out the two. Look at this a little bit more analytically and a little less emotionally so that you can really get a clear picture of where you started and what happened during the course of the year in relation to your goals, not in relation to outside circumstances, not in relation to things that were out of your control, but just what were my goals, and then thinking about how did I do towards reaching those goals. So try and separate the emotion and look at it from an analytical point of view. Did you reach those goals? And if you maybe have 2 different categories, put them into 2 different categories. Which ones were you able to accomplish this year and which ones were more of a challenge that you weren't able to do at all? And then maybe have a 3rd category where you put the goals that you made some progress towards, even though you might not have fully reached that goal. Step number 2 is to evaluate action steps. Again, with more of an analytical perspective, think about what steps did you try to take to reach that goal? What steps did you put in place? And again, thinking about, were these steps helpful? Was I able to follow the action steps in the action plan I laid out for myself? Or were these steps not helpful? And doing some reflection on why. What made this action step work for you and what made this other action step a little bit more challenging? Again, taking out those outside circumstances and really just focusing on the action itself. I know this is a little bit tricky for this year, but you can do it. I know and have confidence that you'll be able to make this happen, okay? We're going somewhere with this. So the 3rd thing I want you to look at is your goal alignment. Were your goals that you set for yourself or your New Year's resolutions, were they realistic? Was it really something that you were going to be able to accomplish in a year? If you are like me, I have set some really lofty goals for myself that, looking back on them, how did I ever think, even in a normal year, how did I ever think that I was going to be able to accomplish that goal? It just wasn't realistic. And I see it all the time with my students. They'll set goals for themselves, and I really have to help them to make realistic goals. And we'll talk more about this in the future. But right now, just analyze, were those goals you set actually realistic goals for the course of the year? And thinking about if they matched your self-identity. So how do you view yourself? How do you want to view yourself? Did those goals line up with who you see yourself to be or who you want to see yourself become? So thinking about goal alignment. Step number 4 is thinking about your self-identity. So what is your self-identity? How do you view yourself? And how do you want to view yourself? Is there alignment between where you want to see yourself going and how you see yourself and the goals that you set? So we want to make sure that it's cohesive. Otherwise, the goal is going to be very abstract and arbitrary. It's not going to really fit with your life, and therefore you're not going to create habits or put in the work necessary to reach that goal. So you really want to think about, does this line up with who I see myself being? And then thinking about, do you need to make some shifts as we move into the new year? If things aren't quite lining up, where do you need to make some shifts? Is that going to need to be in your self-identity, or does that need to be with the goals that you set for yourself? Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about this in part 2 of our goal setting series. And then step number 5 is the extent of change. So how much change do you really need to see? Sometimes we can set goals where we just need to see a little bit of change in order to be successful. And sometimes we set goals because we're here and we want to see ourselves over here, and there's a big gap in between, and so we need to see a lot of change. And that could be where you got into setting up some unrealistic goals, because maybe your goal was for over here when you started out over here, and it was too much to actually see the results that you wanted to see or feel like you were being successful towards reaching that goal. And so we just want to keep some of these things in mind. If you are trying to change your self-identity or change something in a very drastic way, we want to keep that in mind as we're preparing to set up goals for the new year. If there are huge gaps, we might have to prioritize some items. Maybe you tried to take on way too much last year, and that's why you weren't successful in being able to reach your goals. So we might need to prioritize things of most importance. And I think that sometimes we forget we can actually set a goal in January, and if you reach that goal by June, set a new goal for yourself. You don't have to have set every goal for the entire year in January. And I think sometimes we kind of forget about that, and maybe that's why we set these big, huge, lofty goals that are not as realistic and are harder for us to achieve. So I hope that you found these 5 steps for personal self-reflection and the self-reflection questions that I provided for you very helpful as you are looking back over this past year and preparing to set up your goals for the brand new year. Let me know down in the comments below, what are some self-reflection questions that you ask yourself when you are going through the whole goal setting process? I would love to hear more from you there. And then join me back here in the next video. Part 2 is going to be about questions that we can ask to analyze our self-identity and see where we're at with that. So until next time, bye everyone.